Section 1, Underground, is really where we get the Underground Man's philosophy and his ideas about the world. And it's a lot of thought and sort of, I wouldn't say there's a system to it, but it very similar to Nietzsche. It's very anti-system. It's very sporadic. It seems negative. It's very critical and analytical of society and human nature. Well, in Section 2, Apropos of Wet Snow, we get a story from where we see these principles in action from the Underground Man's life. And what happens in this story, essentially?
Well, we've kind of touched on what happens in this story a little bit. Right? He's recounting, of course, as we know from his philosophy in Underground, he's 40, and the memory he's discussing, the memories that he's discussing here happened when he was 24. He was a civil service worker. He had bad interactions with his coworkers, right? He met that man and decided that he was gonna stick it to him. He was gonna really claim his honor by telling you're not allowed to just move me over.
The officer,
right?
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna write him a letter. I'm not gonna send the letter. I never sent it. I'm gonna get this new collar. I never used it. I'm gonna right, like you talked about with Semenoff and
right.
Yeah.
And he's and that Russian officer is hilarious. The guy
really
that he so he's walking down the street and he sees a guy fly out a window from a bar fight, right? And he thinks, I want to get checked out of a window, right? And he goes in there and he's thinking he's going to get into some rowdy, Vita Loca type stuff, and nobody even takes note of him, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, what you mentioned is he tries even standing in front of the guy who's like some kind of Russian officer in the service, and he stands right in front of him, and the guy, without even acknowledging him, takes him by the shoulders and literally moves him aside, like just
he's
lifts
so
him up.
inconsequential that he could just be moved.
Right,
Yeah.
and that offends him so much. And think about it. Indifference is the worst, right? It's worse than confrontation and hostility, and it's worse than, and it's not, acceptance and love. It's just sort of like you don't even, you matter as much as a fly.
Yeah.
I mean, really, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first part, is this whole obsession with this Russian officer, and he does all this preparation and he does all this thinking. And how many times do we do that, Hannah, where it's sort of like somebody offends us or something goes wrong and we do all this planning and all this,
Well, it's like a good example that people do all the time is planning a conversation of how you're gonna tell them off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about all the ways that I'm gonna
Yes.
scold this person for how they offended me, and you're just like, and then they're gonna say, and then I'm gonna, and they're gonna feel real bad, and you're kind of just role playing this whole scenario in your head. And at the end, if somebody asks you, if maybe you're doing with this a different person, you've enlisted a friend or something or a family member to help you in this like shame fantasy, and then they ask, so when are you gonna do it? Are you gonna go talk to the person? You're gonna go tell them what you think? No, I don't think I'm gonna.
Or
do
it just
it.
fades out,
it
right?
Just
or
fades,
it just sort
and
of...
that did enough. Like, it was the same example of I'm not gonna write the story or I'm not gonna make the website anymore because I just kind of got it off my chest. I was so obsessed about it, but that was my way of actualizing it, is just thinking and talking about it.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I once had a really bad experience in a casino in Las Vegas, in the New York. I was pretty much mugged by two women, right, in an elevator. I know that sounds crazy, right? And they got away with my wallet. And I had to deal with security, hotel security. And they were worse than the muggers. Hotel security, they were sort of like, I already watched the footage from the elevator and you didn't resist them enough. And they seemed to be they were chuckling and things. And so I had this whole plan that I was going to, anything from sue the casino but I slaved over this letter that I wrote, like over a couple of weeks, and made additions and changes and checked facts and all these things. And I never sent it. And I never even asked for like a free week there or anything like that. And so much thought went into that, and so much obsession, and so much I should have done this and I should have done that. And then ultimately I didn't do anything, kind of like the Underground Man. And that's sort of what goes on with the officers. So that's one story in here. But then the other story is involving this dinner party with his old school friends, which is just one of the most cringeworthy
It's terrible.
get-togethers in all of literature.
Yeah.
I think I've been to this dinner party. I mean, I don't know.
Have you been the undergrad man at this dinner party? Just completely unwanted, inviting yourself and showing up early and staying too late? Yeah.
I could probably think of a situation or two where I was in a similar, maybe not as bad, but similar type of thing. And the astounding thing is that he just keeps pushing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
He just keeps pushing it. And there are so many places where he says, I knew I should have left then, or I knew I shouldn't have gone back, or I knew, I mean, they get there late, he gets there early, he's waiting for them, they get there, he doesn't have any money, he has to borrow money from them, it doesn't even seem like he's as into the party as they all are.
No, he's pacing. He literally hates it. He's just like standing there and he's pacing in the party and they're just watching him and saying, what are you doing? Bud, what's going on? Why are you here?
It's like, imagine that. So this a-hole basically invites himself to your party, and then they're trying to conscientiously draw attention to themselves by saying they're completely don't want to be there, and they're
then leave. But I don't want to. It's like he wants to suffer, or what is it? He just
and these guys are partying. I mean, this sounds like, I mean, you could go down to downtown San Luis Obispo and probably find it's like they're smoking, there's cigarette butts all over the place, they're ordering all kinds of food, they're drinking, they're talking trash. And meanwhile, he even starts yelling at them at some points and insulting them.
Oh, yeah.
And this is all a party for Zverkov. And his characterizations of all these people he's with are really not very nice. I should say.
It's not like he likes them or anything. He doesn't respect them.
He doesn't like them. Yeah, he totally doesn't like them. And then keep in mind, he has no money. I think that just the fact that they're so drunk is the only reason that he didn't completely ruin this party. Right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's probably what it is. And then they all decide they're going to go to what Polonius from Hamlet would call a house of sale, right? Right? A brothel. They're going to go to a brothel. And once again, he has one of these arguments, like just excruciating, should I go or should I not go? I really shouldn't go.
He goes. Of course he goes. He does. And who does he meet?
Yes, and I think that really this is what it all leads up to is Liza. He meets
Liza,
a young prostitute named Liza.
She's 20. Who's
sort of a tragic character and also probably the most human person we meet in this whole book.
Yeah,
I would say. And what could we say about? And we're not even getting into his whole relationship with Apollon, his servant, which is hilarious.
So funny.
It's like really hilarious. But let's talk about Liza. You know what I always think of when I think of Liza is these two eyes in the dark, because that's kind of like what he describes her as. He just sees these bright eyes, and I think that you can that there's a metaphoric level to that too. That Liza is these two eyes in the dark, vision in the darkness.
Yeah. She sees. She kind of, maybe we have. I personally think that she symbolizes an idea of hope for change. And we see her. She's on the steps. She's slapping this fish. She looks much older than she really is. She's pretty much. If she stays in this life, as he would say, she's going to waste it. She's going to lose all her youthful vigor. Eventually, she's going to be stuck. But for now, she still has the opportunity to get out. And he, of course, like you said earlier, that his moralizing just sounds like BS. Right. He talks a lot about love and happiness and how marriage can really open life up for people, and for a husband and wife to have children is the largest happiness, because even in times of suffering, if there's love, there can still be joy, and people can get through anything together. And she has the opportunity to get out now, and she should while she still can, and he can help her, is something he promises. He can help her. Come to my home and I'll help you, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's okay, but she takes that. And she trusts in him, because I think that she believes things can be otherwise.
Right, and I think that you're right on there with that. She offers hope, and also I think that she's the ultimate test here. Really, the Underground Man is sort of as he'll tell you himself, he's kind of like a non-issue. He's sort of one of these invisible people. Like, he's already lost in some ways. But Liza is somebody. She's young. She's maybe still got her idealism. She hasn't been doing this that long. Possibly. That there is hope for her, and I think that she is maybe the only revolutionary consciousness we get in this book, really, that she somehow, he affects her, and maybe just like he affects her, he could possibly affect us. But here's bottom of 87 and top of 88 in the novel. There was something simple-hearted and kind in that face, yet somehow serious to the point of strangeness. I was certain that it was a disadvantage to her there, and that none of those fools had noticed her. However, she could not have been called a beauty. Though she was tall, strong, well-built, she was dressed extremely simply. Something nasty stung me. I went straight up to her. By chance, I looked in the mirror. My agitated face seemed to me repulsive in the extreme, pale, wicked, mean, with disheveled hair. Let it be. I'm glad of it, I thought. I'm precisely glad that I'll seem repulsive to her. I like it. And there's the contrast we get between the Underground Man and Liza, right?
Yeah.
Is that Liza is, even though she's simple, there's something wholesome about her, even though she's a prostitute, right? Yeah. And we get her eyes on the very bottom of 88 and top of 89. There were fumes in my head. Something was as if hovering over me, brushing against me, agitating and troubling me. Anguish and bile were again boiling up in me and seeking a way out. Suddenly, I saw two open eyes beside me, peering at me curiously and obstinately. Their expression was coldly indifferent, sullen, as if utterly alien. It gave one a heavy feeling. And that's Liza there. And Liza is that soul in peril, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that it is his influence that causes her to maybe have hope?
Well, if you're asking if it's the Underground Man himself, I don't think it's himself. I think it's the fact that she is interacted with, that she has the opportunity. Somebody takes, maybe it's the fact that anybody took the time to speak with her about another possibility, that life could be differently, that she is not trapped. That this was something she truly believed in herself, because we've heard this come many times, this truth come around many times of change has to come from within. If we're just being told from an external source that this is something we need to do, but we don't actually accept it as positive, then we're not going to implement that change. Maybe she already had that desire to escape, but she thought that she wasn't worthy, or for some reason she was trapped and she had no other option. But then it wasn't necessarily who the Underground Man is. Maybe it was just what he said, and the fact that he said it to her, that he took a chance on her, made her realize that she's worth that chance, that made her kind of remember that can be. And she doesn't have to be doomed or destined to this life.
Right, yeah.
It's not him.
It's not like her. What he said, or like, but maybe it's just the encounter. I'm not saying like that he somehow convinced her with his moral arguments or those sorts of things. But if you look at, I really think that there is a breakthrough of revolutionary consciousness on 93, or possible. And this is the Underground Man, even in the midst of his lowest, like most terrible, right? He says, I turned to her with loathing. I was no longer sermonizing coldly. I myself began to feel what I was saying and became excited. I already thirsted to expound my cherished, quote, little ideas, unquote, lived out in my corner. Something in me suddenly lit up. Some goal, quote, appeared, unquote. And this is really unusual for the Underground Man.
It is.
And he's realizing it. He's got some kind of strange feeling, maybe what Socrates called his daemon inside, that something is lighting up inside him. He says, never mind my being here. I'm no example for you. Maybe I'm even worse than you. Anyway, I was drunk when I stopped here. Besides, a man is no sort of example for a woman. it's a different thing. I may dirty and befoul myself, but all the same, I'm nobody's slave. I'm here, then I'm gone, and that's all. And we're wondering, is he really nobody's slave? Is he his own slave? I mean, or is he a slave to ideas?
Right.
There.
Yeah, I think it's quite. I mean, it is a bit sad that he starts to kind of. Maybe, yeah, it is a breakthrough, I think, of revolutionary consciousness that it shows he could even, when he believes what he actually says, maybe he does, in a sense, believe that life could have been this way. I'm compelled by his conversation about love and marriage, and on page 98 or 97. A lot of it is driven, I think, by his own psychology, but maybe that's things that he's yearned for, connection and that relationship, and to not be so isolated and to have that fellowship with another person or with people. And just because the underground man doesn't know what to do with it when he gets love and when he gets compassion doesn't mean he is inhuman, that he doesn't desire it.
Right. Yes, and that's really, really good what you're going to there on 97 and 98, and that's what I even have in my notes. It says, is his disclosure on marriage all BS? You know? But like we were talking about before we sat down to do this, that grace can be conferred even through a broken vessel, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he's doing there. And it's really shocking that you have the underground man talking about marriage, love. He even touches kind of like, it almost sounds like the Holy Family or something.
Yeah,
like
kids,
like Joseph, Mary, and Jesus here, and he's like a husband, wife, and child, right? And mother and baby, and and you're like, whoa, is this the same guy?
Yeah, like,
right?
Does he actually think these things?
Yeah.
Does he want this? Does he believe this, or is he just being spiteful right now? But...
And maybe it's just that something that he knows he can never achieve, right? And he really works on her to try to get to her and make her vulnerable. But then she calls him out, and I love it.
Yeah.
And this is towards the bottom of 99. She says, but you, and he says, what? And he's feeling guilty here, too. She says, it's as if it's from a book, she said, and again, something like mockery sounded in her voice. I was painfully twinged by this remark. It was not what I was expecting, right? And it's kind of like she just sees through his, did you read this somewhere? Because I don't think this is coming from you.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what
It's not like he's lived it out. It's not like he knows it to be true from experience. Yeah.
Right. And some of this, it's funny. I mean, some of my notes in here, and we're going to be finishing up in just a couple of minutes here, Cougars. We're going to wrap this up. I think that this section here, chapter 7 at the beginning, starts off with the underground man talking. And he says to us, I came to my senses just now. I immediately felt vile for being here with you. Or no, he's saying this to her. Yeah. I came to my senses just now. I immediately felt vile for being here with you. One has to be drunk to end up here. But if you were in a different place, living as good people live, I might not just dangle after you, but simply fall in love with you, and be glad if you merely glanced at me, let alone spoke. So he's almost like disavowing all that nice stuff he just said. Now, of course, he's got to go back to his sort of, his terrible...
because the wicked feeling took hold of him, the end of chapter 6.
That spite, that sort of thing. But this kind of reminded me of kind of like the whole dating app scene and everything here. You meet somebody, you have like ideas, or you see somebody maybe on a dating app, a person sees somebody on a dating app and they think, oh, they're this type of person, right? Whatever. He says, well, here I know I just have to whistle, and like it or not, you'll go with me. And it's no longer I who ask your will, but you mine. The merest peasant hires himself out to work, yet his bondage isn't total. Besides, he knows there's a term to it. But where's your term? Just think what it is you're giving up here. What are you putting in bondage? It's your soul over which you have no power, that you put in bondage along with your body. You give your love to be profaned by any drunkard. Love, but this is everything. It's a diamond, a maiden's treasure, this love. To deserve this love, a man would be ready to lay down his life, to face death. Now, this is a really long-winded speech, but he gets kind of idealistic here after being like really mean to her. And I think about it. I mean, I don't know from experience, but I've heard, about dating apps and all these things, all this hooking up goes on, and people are just sort of like, oh, well, I didn't like that person, but they have sex with them, or they, whatever, and it's just kind of like, they don't ever really know each other. I mean, in a lot of cases. I'm not saying...
It doesn't have to be love, right, yeah.
Until they find that person, I guess.
Right.
That's
where I get a little confused maybe with this quote that you were reading, because he's saying that she's devaluing her potential to love by being a prostitute and giving her body over in sex to these men, to these drunkards. But that's not her love. He's conflating those two things, it seems. At least it seems to me that he's conflating her sexuality and her body with her ability to love men, which doesn't...
I've actually... this is embarrassing to admit, but there's a lot of reels, say, on I've been seeing on, say, Instagram or Facebook that talk about things like that, like dating type stuff, and saying that, and they seem to conflate it just like this, that the more men a woman has sex with, and vice versa, that the less able they are to be in a loving, loyal, faithful relationship, something like that. And I mean, I don't know the stats behind it, or the... I mean,
I think it depends on probably the psychology behind their sex, but...
Right, but I see the distinction that you're making is very clear, that love and sex are not the same thing, but that, it raises a really good question. As somebody who's had a lot of partners, are they still capable of being loyal and loving to one person? I mean, this is really...
Right. Really, I mean, the text asks a lot of great questions, and hopefully you're picking them up, and hopefully you're thinking them through. But what really happens with Liza, too, is that, I mean, she has love to give.
She does.
She has love to give, and even after the underground man has scolded her and thrown a little tantrum, a large tantrum, actually, like
one
a
of his
straight
many
up
tantrums,
many tantrum. Yeah. She... on page 126, the very end of chapter 9 and leading through 10, she embraced him rapturously and ardently. She hugs him. She shows him love. She shows him human compassion. We don't have to interpret this as she's in love with the underground man, because honestly, why would she be in love with the underground man? But she is showing him care.
Right.
And so clearly she has that capability, and that hasn't been defiled. So one, that's an example. And I know you wanted to talk about on 127 as well. His love. Like maybe he thinks that he guessed, I myself never guessed that she had come to me not at all to hear pathetic words, but to love me. Because for a woman it is in love that all resurrection, all salvation from ruin of whatever sort, and all regeneration consists. Nor can it reveal itself in anything else but this.
Right. And
but sorry, I don't know. What do you take from that? Because
I think that this is after he gives that whole rant on her, where he just really goes off on her.
Yeah.
And he does this kind of back and forth, like on the bottom of 122, when he's saying, why did you come? Answer. I'll tell you why you came, my dear. You came because of the pathetic words I said to you then. So you went all soft and you wanted more pathetic words. Know that I was laughing at you at that time, and I'm laughing now. Why do you tremble? So he kind of almost like tries to recant everything that he says, all the good stuff that he says, all those positive, hopeful, loving things. He's just dashing them there now.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, going back to 127, where you were asking me about that, right, it says, love consists precisely in the right, voluntarily granted by the beloved object, to be tyrannized over. In my underground dreams as well, I never pictured love to myself otherwise than as a struggle. And you just read part of this, right?
I read the quote below.
You read the quote. Okay.
Continue.
So love, otherwise than as a struggle. For me, it always started from hatred and ended with moral subjugation. And afterwards, I couldn't even picture to myself what to do with the subjugated object. And I think that's really complicated there. Like this sort of, they say that you can't really hate a person unless you love them. Mm-hmm. And remember, his worst thing is indifference. He can't stand just people being indifferent about him. So everything is extremes with him, right? And to him, to love is to tyrannize another person until you can't stand them anymore. I mean, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it is, because we also see on page 69 that his only close friendship, he did something similar. The second that man actually started to love him, he would drive him away and be quite abusive, actually, to these people.
And that's really terrible. He brings that kind of nerdy guy in and becomes his best friend, and totally, and that's in Underground, and totally becomes like his best friend, and then just completely turns on him and treats him terrible and humiliates him and really devastates him. It's hard to read.
Yeah. A lot of Underground Man is hard to read, and maybe, of course, we can look back and say this is because he has a lot of pain and he's lashing out and all of these things, right? We can find our own justifications for why the Underground Man rejects people, because maybe he never thought he'd get that far. He's searched his whole life for that connection, that external validation, and yet when he finds it, he just presses it away because he's so insecure and he hates himself so, and there's no way out. But ultimately, we can see these two separate forms of love. How the Underground Man has manifested in abuse and not knowing what to do with that person, so he even views the person who loves him and the person who he loves in any given situation as a subjugated object. That's pathological.
Whereas is pathological.
He's talking about Liza, who is giving him compassion despite his outbursts, despite all of his, putting her down and revoking every good thing he had just said. And I'd like to... Underground Man says, the quote that I read earlier about a love that is for women, and women it is love that is all resurrection and salvation of whatever sort. But I think that maybe from this we can extract a non-gendered connotation.
People. It's funny that you say that, because I have in my note here, what about men?
Yeah.
That this is, it seems to be very misogynistic, like a woman needs love to be resurrected. What about? He doesn't comment on men.
It's just sad. It's not just misogynistic. It's worse for men if that's not.
Right.
If love can be redeeming for men as well, then...
Like men have no hope or something.
Yeah, like men have no hope and women have hope. This is the Underground Man's pathology, though, so don't get stuck, of course, there.
Right.
And maybe we can take from it that love is a more redeeming virtue.
Right. After those, and those conversations, you really need to read those. You really need to look at them. And
very closely.
I think that this is really interesting on page 128, because there's more, and he's kind of going with this split of the head and the heart here. It's Liza's leaving, right? She's finally, she can't stand him anymore, or she's told him what she thinks he needs to hear. And he says, he wanted to run after her or something, but it doesn't happen. And he goes, but this much I can say with certainty. Although I did this cruelty on purpose, it came not from my heart, but from my stupid head. And there's that dichotomy, the split between the heart and the head. This cruelty was so affected, so much from the head, so purposefully contrived, so bookish, that I myself could not bear it even for a minute. First I sprang away to the corner so as not to see. Then in shame and despair I rushed after Liza. I opened the door to the landing and began to listen. And I think that's really important, that he doesn't ever listen, and he doesn't ever, open himself up to other people.
Right.
He doesn't say, I started yelling after her. He's listening. Liza, Liza, I called out to the stairway, but timidly in a low voice. There was no answer. I thought I could hear her footsteps below. Liza, right? And then she leaves, right? Right. And doesn't she pay also? She leaves money for him too, right? She gives him his money back, right? And he says, I could have expected her to do that. Could I? No. I was so great an egoist. I had so little real respect for people that I could scarcely imagine that she would do that. He has such a low value of himself and humanity. He just doesn't think people are
capable of those things.
Capable
would
of
ever do something
acts
like that.
of empathy, like just complete.
True.
without thought, without the overthinking and the
Yeah.
cognition and all of those sorts of things, right?
Intrinsic empathy, yeah.
Yeah. He has to like work himself up to do anything. Right.
Yeah.
And he asks the question as he's going into his sort of like his closing out, which is better, cheap happiness or lofty suffering? And I think that is one of the big questions of the book, right? And is lofty suffering just attention-seeking behavior, do you think?
Lofty, I mean, I think lofty as the qualifier is kind of alluding to it being, yeah, like dramatic suffering, played up, kind of like the toothache. We didn't mention the toothache.
Oh, yes,
but
the toothache.
You don't need to be crying out. Everyone knows you're in pain already,
Yes,
so you're just doing it
yes,
to do it, to show
yes.
everyone that you're in pain, right? Lofty suffering, cheap happiness, but...
I know both qualifiers are sort of, they already influence, it's almost like a loaded argument, right?
Or can happiness and suffering, maybe a question to ask is, can happiness and suffering be completely separate, or must they coexist?
Or can you find happiness in suffering? Can a person be happy while they're suffering?
Right.
I mean, I think that's a possibility. I think in just some things about the last, and we could talk so much more about so much in this book, everybody out there in Cougarland, but I think it's really interesting on the last couple of pages, the Underground Man starts sort of analyzing his own novel here. If you look at the top of 131, right, and saying, this is not really that interesting, right, through a deficiency of milieu, through unaccustomed to what is alive, and through vainglorious spite in the underground, it is not interesting by God. A novel needs a hero, and here there are purposely collected all the features for an anti-hero. And in the first place, all this will produce a most unpleasant impression because we've all grown unaccustomed to life. We're all lame, each of us more or less. And he's just kind of like, I realize there's not really a hero in this novel, but hey, anti-hero. And I don't know if this is the first usage of this word, but the term, he actually says, you get an anti-hero.
Anti-hero, yeah.
Right.
It could be. That'd be worth looking into.
That would be worth looking into, right?
Yeah.
And then he just kind of leaves us here with this sort of, I'm not going to do anything, and I never do anything. And that's sort of where he leaves us. Without a book, and we'll immediately get confused, lost. We won't know what to join, what to hold on to, what to love, and what to hate, what to respect, and what to despise. It's a burden for us even to be men with real, our own bodies and blood. We're ashamed of it. We consider it a disgrace and keep trying to be some unprecedented omni-man, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds like Nietzsche's Uberman.
It does, right?
Or Omni-Man from Invincible, if you're following that cartoon. Yes, but he kind of like tries to disentangle his whole... That last part without a book, he says, we don't even know where the living lives now, or what it is, or what it's called. Leave us to ourselves without a book, and we'll immediately get confused, lost. We won't know. I think like without our phones, is that how it would be today? We'll immediately get confused, lost. We won't know what to join, what to hold to, what to love, what to hate, what to respect.
Yeah, I think so. I think, without dominant culture. I think what the book would represent is like dominant culture. Right now it is social media without the phones, without everything, but it is just media in general. I think, of course, our television, the politics, doom scroll, all of it contributes into a dominant culture. Without that, people are likely to get lost and confused and not know where to turn. That's why we form structures in the first place. So,
okay.
Good thoughts. Yeah.
So Liza is probably the most heroic. He doesn't mention her at the end. I think she is the hero.
Yeah.
I would say that, and that she's the one real human in here with some empathy and with some, and maybe in spite of his destructive bent, she learns from him.
She realizes her agency. She certainly shows us that and shows empathy. Yeah, definitely.
And shows that you can, without being cruel and spiteful, you can have a reaction and change up and do unexpected things. What are they? Willful acts of
opposition. I'm not, yeah.
There's you see it on
Willful
bumper
acts
stickers
of-
sometimes, like
Oh.
do willful acts of random acts of kindness, that
random
kind of
acts
thing,
yes,
like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's more shocking to people than all the cruelness and horror that we see in the world there.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
this is a lot to think about, students, and I know that this was a long conversation, but I know that I dug this conversation.
As did I.
And
I dig this novel. This is such a good text.
Yes.
So I hope you all found a lot of meaning in it.
And lots of ideas for your critical essays in here.
Any of these things could be picked up. I mean, we talked on so many different topics. We get free will, determinism, hyperconsciousness, gender dynamics in Notes from Underground.
Sure.
Right? You can take up any of these. Social claims, if you adopt a certain lens. Even you could even look at it through a Marxist lens or a certain critique of capitalism in the current day.
Right. Or are those algorithms on our phone determining who we are and what we are? Or are we ultimately? I mean, these are all questions that you can take on. And we want to thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you all so much.
And this is Hannah and Patchell signing out.
All right. Bye-bye.
Until next time.